Okay. I'm going to go over the essential pieces of last week's lab one more time because we didn't have audio when I did it. But it won't be a lot of code that we're going to go over, so that's not going to be a big deal. We are going to look at the HTML5 drawing tools. So we're going to be drawing using, there's a canvas object, and we'll be drawing with that. And this is all 2D. 3D is a different ball of wax altogether, and frankly, if you were thinking of doing 3D, unless you probably should go into Unity, probably should go to Unreal for the HTML5 capabilities that Unity and Unreal are doing. Literally, one of the things that, and why do we know this? Like when Google and Microsoft said, if you were doing anything with like the HoloLens or the Google VR headset, they basically said, go use Unity. You know, it's in the same place, go use Unreal. Right now, those tools have matured so much that it is, the amount of work that you'd have to do just to get up and running to get something simple in 3D is insane. And that's not even the scope of this course or any courses in our curriculum. That's a devoted course just for that alone, just like if it was like DirectX or the Microsoft API or working with the Vulkan API or OpenGL. Yeah. There's a whole course just for that alone, just to get 3D up and running and doing it well. So what we're looking at is just the 2D components, and there's not a lot of pieces, but they're there and they're useful, and well, there's so. So let me just go through. Your assignment, there's this lab 1 grids document, .txt. This grid.zip file basically has these two files and a bunch of other files in it. Let me actually bring up the folder for it. So here is that grid. It's lab 1. There's a reason why it's called lab 1. You will see that there are stuff from Monogame, which is a C# implementation. But the big thing here is I've got all these different, like, I've got letters, I've got numbers, an X mark. So, like, if you look in here, you can see that in here in this initialize, like, if you parse through it, like, here's a new line. I'm literally defining, like, here is one part of a line, next part of a line. Next line, go and all the way through where we go. Basically, I've set up. So this is the number 0 in this case. So, you know, I've got 6 lines setting this up for our purposes here. Let me just throw this. So there's extra material thrown at you because it comes from other courses. Also, that we will look at this probably most likely next week. Like we may not use it this week, but here's stuff here for you to look at, to think about. The core thing that we're going to be doing is be drawing lines. Now I'm going to go through the tools. So I'm going to redo last week's lecture, which is the JavaScript fundamentals that we need to know, and then we're going to jump in and we're going to talk a little bit about functions, because there's a funkiness to functions that you should know about, and then we're going to go through the drawing tools. All your drawing tools are in this folder right here. The grid document, basically, one of the weird things about the grid document is that it's going to refer to things such as like the screen size is a vector 3. No, it's just going to be a vector. This is because this version of this document came from a version where this was being built in Unity. And so 2D points were being held in the vector 3 for convenience purposes. So this is going to be a point or a vector 2, effectively. So you are going to create a grid 2D class. We're going to go over what is a class in JavaScript. But ultimately, the goal of the lecture is that at the end, when everything's said and done, you're going to build. Let me just. There we go. You can see a little bit bigger now. So you're building your grid. So yeah, that's the goal. But it's going to take, you know, there it is.
More difficult than it seems.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult. There's a lot of busybody work, and I'm also telling you that there's things that you can do with the grid. that I want you to be able to do. Like with the mouse button, if I click here, the origin of the world will jump to that location. So there's translation things that you are doing this week, and this is, again, it's having you think conceptually in a particular way, and again, depending on how this goes, there'll be another lab where the work you do here will be instrumental to the work. Like the work you do in this lab is going to be instrumental in the next lab that I'm going to assign to you. So I'm just going to back off and just basically give you this is setting up for you to work on another lab where you'll be graphing things. One of the things that I want, let me go through the JavaScript stuff. So so that's where we're going. I'm going to show you a lot more than that, and we're going to show you more code than you need, but it will be, you'll be able to take this and run in a direction. All right, here's the drawing folder. All right, so I'm going to open this folder right here. All right, so the big piece that you should take away is that, I should take away the style actually. There we go. So the big piece here is that we've linked to the drawing JavaScript. So actually it's two pieces. So one thing that I was having an issue with was that I had this up in the header previously, and I was trying to refer to things in my page. The problem is when you have it up here, things down here haven't been created as of yet. So I was trying to refer to things that didn't exist yet, and I was getting null references to them when that was happening. And so the result is I put my script at the bottom of the page, and that solves the problem. I had forgotten about that. This is one of the weird quirkiness of JavaScript that you have to deal with. Two, for our drawing purposes, basically everything's going to go through this canvas element. And right now I've set a canvas of 500 by 500 with the idea of my canvas. And if we go to let me see, what am I? So right now I'm drawing basically two things, well, three things specifically. This line, that line, this line. Let's take a look at the drawing.javascript. Drawing.cs basically is the canvas. Basically it's giving the border. Well, it was giving the border. We'll not worry about this. So let's go to look at the JavaScript right now. All right. The two pieces of the canvas, I should actually go over some Java. I'm going the reverse order. Let me just go over this. So the two lines of code that sets up everything for you is this two right here. One gets the canvas, and then from the canvas gets the 2D context. And it's through this CTX variable where we will have all the we have references to methods in order for us to draw. And that's the fundamental setup. Let's review variables. So there are three types of variables. There's the var type variable, there is a let type variable, and there is a constant type variable. So var is your standard variable. It's been in JavaScript forever. The constant, basis for constant, so if we want a pi, you go 3.14. So I've made a constant variable for pi, and I know there's more. I'm just using 3.4 right now. The other variable type is the let, and this variable is scope dependent. So right now this is in the global scope. Like this, right now we're in the global scope. But I could have gone in and been like, hey, let b equal to 5. And the moment we go out of the constructor, b goes out of scope and it's no longer usable. So B is only in scope of that variable. I mean, sorry, of the function called constructor. If I go down, I make another. I have got a function down here. Again, we'll make let hey equal to hey. The moment I leave this draw line function, this variable goes out of scope and it's not usable anywhere else. So that's where let comes into play. For our purposes, I'm going to take out let here. So I just want to make sure that we those are the type of variables. Again, with JavaScript, variables are typeless. So I can do variable var something is equal to 5 string, something is equal to 5, something is equal to 5.5, something is equal to, I'll just do this canvas. So another object. Something is equal to the character, that caret. And these are all valid lines of code. And in that particular order as well. What is it yelling about? Okay, it's just about, let me take out that line of code. So again, these are all valid lines of code within JavaScript. All right. This leads into a scenario where I'm just do a function. So the traditional way you're going to do a function is the word function. I call it func. What do I do with function? Oh yeah, if something, and you're going to see the triple equal sign. Now, the double equal, let's say this is equal to 5. So right now with the double equal, basically this could be, it's wishy-washy. What you want instead is the triple equals. This gets type, so it's making sure that it is the value 5 and not the string 5 or the character 5. And this will also make sure that it's the same value and type. And that's important. It does recognize that this is an integer. It's just this will now make sure that I've got another integer, something is another integer equal to 5. So basically, if I move this line of code down here, now that will be equal to true. If I take all of, let's whip this around. So if I get this, with the double equals, it could equivalent that to be equals true. More so if it was just the character 5. It might, JavaScript might do some funky stuff in that regards. So when you are in JavaScript, where you would use a double equal sign for is this equal to that, you will use a triple equal sign. If else, for loops, while loops, they're all there. So the syntax, for the most part, you know, in terms of the Boolean operations, if statements, control statements, is pretty much the same. There'll be a few things that are a little different, but not too much. And it's nothing that you wouldn't be able to handle. Arrays. So I'm going to do var this array, and it's just basically the bracket notation. So this, I've just created a new empty array. I can go in and I can do this array. Actually, I should call it that array, just so that, there we go. This is a keyword that I don't want to be using that way, and that we can do push is basically you can add an element to the array. You can also pop, remove, and then it should be a remove. There's a remove all. Yeah, there should be remove range. So there's a whole slew of different remove item. Where is it? I just saw it. There we go. So there's a fully featured things. Again, I can access that array 1 is equal to, I can assign it to it, or I can get it out. Now granted, this is going to fail. Array is empty. So I'm going to just basically take this out because I haven't had anything to the array. So those are the things, basic things that, oh, and also if we wanted to, we could actually, let's not, we can, that array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll just put these in order. So I basically created an array of integers. So you can initialize an array in that regards as well. All right, let's bring up in your drawing folder. There's a folder here called Pages, and it's just basically references to everything and anything that you'll need for this assignment. There is a, where is it? There's a page called Functions. And it's to javascript.mdn. That's the Mozilla Developer Network. So in terms of HTML5 and JavaScript, I'd forgotten about this, but Mozilla is actually a really great resource for that. So we're going to just look at functions. So they can be, their first tax objects can pass to other objects, return from functions, assigned to variables and properties. There's a whole slew of things that you can do with them. And the big one is, let me see, keep going down. So here is a function called basically here is they are creating a new function, here in this case, const multiply, where it's actually creating the function in a weird way. Here is declaration. This is the way that I've been creating these functions. So we have the function, name of the function, x, y, return that. Here they're creating a variable called multiply, const multiply is equal to the function, and here's the x, y. Here is the basically expression, has its own name, so this is multiply func name. We have what's called the arrow function. So this is what we would call to anonymous. And so the issue is that we've got anonymous and we've got lambda style functions. And this is basically, you'll hear about this in other languages. It's available in C# to a certain extent. And so you can create functions that don't have names, but still function in code. So here is here in this case, the lambda function in play here. You will sometimes see parentheses with nothing in it, and then the arrow, and then the definition of the function. And I'll tell you right now, there's a couple documentation places where they use this anonymous or lambda style coding. Like basically, we are going to be basically adding event handlers. And we'll say this for this event, use this function. And in some cases, you will see in some documentation places, they will, instead of giving a function name, they will create the function in line, on the spot, right there to handle the code. Not a good idea. And this is I gotta point this out to you because this is JavaScript in a nutshell. And this is, again, we're getting into, sometimes I feel like wacko zone with coding. From my perspective, and what Mozilla is doing is that they are not doing that. When we do a handler, when we need to add an event handler, we are creating a function somewhere else and calling that function by name. Well, not calling it by name, we're assigning it by name to that event handler. So we'll get over that event handlers in a moment. When we get further into getting keyboard input and mouse input and the scroll wheel input, we'll have event handlers for that. All right. I needed to go over this weirdness because you're going to see this in other people's code. You will see this in other tutorials, and they're being weird for no good reason. All right. So there's a way that I'm saying, hey, you will use this, but in good measure. When there is no reason to use it, which is most of the time, 90%, 99%, 95% of the time, you're not even going to see that 5% or that 10% where it's useful. Not where you are right now, where you are. You should know about it because other people are going to try and use it and go with it. And it's the same with the tertiary operator. You should know what it is so that you see it, you know what it is. Also, you know what it is and who to go slap for using it. Because honestly, particularly tertiary operator is the sign of I'm trying to get it better. It's a sign of snobbish behavior, and I'm being polite with my word of snobbish. These are the people who they better have, even if they're like, they better have a good reason why they're using this type scenario. And I just want to point this out. So this is, again, we go back to the week before. The problem with JavaScript is that here is the actual full definition of everything you can do in JavaScript, and here's what you should be doing.
Holy crap! It's like that one meme.
Yeah, and this is legit. This is.
Oh yeah, it is that one meme.
Yeah, I know you've probably seen this one meme, but the reason why the reason it's a meme because this is true, because this is actually what's happening with JavaScript. JavaScript is again derived from EMA-script. And EMA-script has a lot of weird things going on internally. All right. When the web was being put together, JavaScript was put together on pretty much on a whim and a fly, and it just became this standard. And because it's the equivalent of seeing someone banging their head against the wall and asking, "Why are you doing that?" And then them turning to you saying, because that's all that we always done. And they're still banging their head against the wall on the side of their head while they're talking to you. Yeah, that's. JavaScript can be distilled into good pieces, but there's still a lot of wackiness and weirdness that if you really dig into it, there's some like really, really wild and wacky stuff you can do. And I've done some of that in the past.
What's the wildest, wackiest thing that's ever been created on JavaScript?
Not created with JavaScript, how it's structured. So I've shown you classes. Classes are relatively new to JavaScript.
Oh, I forgot.
Previously, there was a way to do inheritance, but you were creating multiple objects to do that. And in part of that process, you could, in theory, create an entity, and then out of nowhere decide to change its parent class out of nowhere. So it was like at one point it was a fish, and now it's an mammal. It's a dog, but it was a fish. I mean, or you could have like a dog that was created with the mammal class, and then out of nowhere be like, oh, this dog is gonna inherit from the fish class now. Okay, wacky, wild things that abound. So you can change, and we're not going to get into how that happens and why. I'm going to try and keep you to simple classes right now. Yeah, so Mozilla, the developer.mozilla.org, this is a great website, good resources for things. There will be times where it'll be hard to read and understand what you're looking for. And I'm going to try and point that out. I'm going to point it and the code that I've given to you this week will help you understand that. Do I have classes in there? No, I don't. I should have added that. Let me see. There you go. I should have added this page. So this is classes. Defining classes. So here is the declaration. Here is what you will most likely do is that you'll create the class. Here's rectangle. Constructor is the height and width. You'll see that my rectangle is actually 4 variables. It's the X and Y and the height and width. So it's more, so again, mine is like working with the screen. You will see that I actually have, let me actually jump into the code. I'll point that out. So here is rectangle. And so I'm creating it by the constructor. So I have an X, Y, width, H, width and height. So I have lazy programmer style. And you can see here I've created a box using, and we are using the new keyword to create a new instance of an object. And you can see right here, I'm passing the value 002020. So it's at 002020. I've created a point class, and this is basically will be also your vector2 class, effectively. You will see that there'll be there's a lot of programming frameworks that have a point class, and it's a scaled down version of the vector2 class, effectively. So just be mindful that if you see a point, it is a vector2, but it may not be the full vector2 class in practice. And again, ultimately, if you've got the vector2 class, use that to your advantage. And I know point in vector2, there's translation, and if you push come shove, you can always create a function like, let me just grab this. Not that. Here we go. So we'll just do a vector. So, vector. So you'll see stuff where basically there's a function where there's a function v22 point where basically they're going to return. They're going to create a new point vector. Sorry, it's going to be the vector. X, comma, the vector dot y. So this is functions like this are going to be extremely. If I can spell function. There we go. So conversion functions like this, whereas again there'll be a point to vector2. So you'll see conversion functions like this are very common. So let's look at the pieces right here. We've basically with when you draw a line, you begin a path, and there's a couple objects where you will begin a path and then you will call stroke and draw it. So for the line, move to basically think of it as move to this point in the canvas, is that effectively. And then line 2 basically is going to set up the line. And then it doesn't actually draw the line until you call stroke on that path effectively. So you can create an object based on a path right here. You could batch up the lines together and draw that. For our purposes right now, I'm isolating that down into to a function which I'm calling draw line. And in my case, I'm giving it basically 100 by 100, 150, 150 green, and then 10 units wide. So think what we're looking at the moment, we've got a stroke style. That's going to be the color. Hold on a sec. And then line width basically we can set the line width as well. So these are two variables that you will be wanting to be set on a regular basis. Like if you're doing again, think of this incremental object right here with our line. We can define the line color and line width before we call the stroke on it. Kyle, you had your hand up. What was up? Go. So again, there's this move to line 2. But this is putting think of it as putting your cursor at a point in the world, and then you're going to draw the line from that point. So from the move to is, again, you can see right here is my start point, and my line 2 is my end point. Now, I could have taken these as points. Ultimately, I could have done a function draw line where I take a point. 2 points instead of that. Ultimately, with that, that's overloading the function effectively. So I just didn't have time to write those overloads. So there's also I could do a draw rectangle where I take the values of the rectangle and draw the 4 lines of the box. Now we do have I did create a box. Yeah, so let's put this 200 by 200. And there is a CTX draw. Not stroke. Here we go. Here's a fill rec. So this is going to build a rectangle that's a solid rectangle block. So in this case, it's going to be looking for X, Y, W, H. And again, I can go box.x, box.y, box.w, box.h. You can see right now I have created a box down here that's black. I can do a CTX fill style is equal to blue. You can see now that I've created, now with the fill rectangle, I'm playing with the fill style as opposed to the stroke style. So basically I've set up, hey, I can set up a box and draw that on screen. Actually want to take this out. Why is this? There we go. Okay. So this is where I'm going to jump into use the open in Chrome version. So I'm in the desktop. So I'm going to open this in Chrome. So here I've added the event listener, and this is a case of where, hey, they have created a function, anonymous function that takes an event, and here is, let me break this a little bit bigger, and here is the code block for that function. No, don't do this. We're going to go over this. We'll look at the add event listener in a little more detail in one moment. But here is left key, left arrow, left, right arrow. I'm going to pop this out into here so that is this broken?
Perhaps it's in the
Let me just make sure.
console.
No, this should have generated an alert. Okay, I'm doing something different than the key codes. So we're going to leave that to the side. Let's jump to the drawing. So this is drawbox.html. The one difference here is that I have a span up here for debug text. And then I've got a 400 by 400, and here's the drawbox.js. So let's just jump this out. And so you can see I'm doing a lot of things. One of the things that I have active in here is that mouse button is playing sound, so is spacebar. My arrow keys are moving this around, and I'll go over how that's set up and why we're getting smooth. I am getting the the mouse location. I'm drawing a line from the center of the box outwards, and I'm also getting the mouse wheel as well. I'm drawing a circle, I'm drawing a line, I'm drawing an image. So these are things that we're going to go over bit by bit. Let's take a look at Drawbox. This is more than just Drawbox. So the big thing is that with input, so again, I've set up the debug text, canvas, the context. So these are pretty straightforward. This is going to be the most important piece right here, is that this set interval. So basically I am drawing that every frame, effectively. I am now setting up basically, I'm setting basically an interval. Basically, I'm calling a function called update every 33 milliseconds, which is about 30 frames a second. And I want it to just be that this is, what's the best way to put this? This is the fast, simple way to get your game loop up and running. So think of all of this code right here as like stuff that would go into the start. Like if we're talking about Unity, this is like start or awake. And this line right here basically says, hey, we have an update function. And I've literally called it update for that purpose because for your familiarity with Unity. Again, with Unreal, it is begin play is the start equivalent to start, and then tick is equivalent to update. So here is update. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm clearing the previous frame. So there's ctx clear rec, and I'm clearing everything that's on screen. If you're not getting everything, then just expand the rectangle to be stuff that's out of frame. So like I could, in theory, let's say let's do like -100, -100 to 6. And again, for the purpose of this, so this is getting everything outside of the rectangle as well, for our purposes. I'm drawing a line, 230 over, 30 over. Down to 225 to 50. I'm going to draw it blue with, I'm going to make this 6 so we can see the change. So we go back to the HTML. You can see that's now thicker. So here is draw line, again, jumping back down. You've seen the draw line function already. Here is the draw rectangle function where I take what's my context, what's my box, what's the color. So again, when you see this, it's going to be CTX, the box, the rectangle for the box, and then whatever color I'm going to use. You've seen this already. These are variables, should be up here. I'm drawing a circle. So again, a circle is a path. Basically, in this case, instead of drawing a line, we're using the arc. So basically, where is so with the arc, X and Y, where is the origin of the circle? What is the radius? What's the start angle? So there's, in this case, so what we're on the circle, so we're drawing an arc. Now we're going to use this for the circle. So we're going to go from 0 to the end angle, which is, in this case, it's going to be 2 times pi. So I'm going to take that back so you can see. So it's where in the terms of the canvas. Again, pull this out. Again, here is my 500 by 500 box. So here's everything I need to do in terms of circle. Again, stroke style, I'm going to fill that, say that as green. Line width of 15, so it's a thick circle. Again, I can go in and go, I can go 50. And I can it's going to be outside and internal as well. So here we go, big, thick 0. We're going to come back to what I'm doing here is I've got input variables. And we'll go, basically, if these are turned on and off by different functions. So in this case, I'm telling that my draw box, I'm moving the X and Y 5 units while these are true. We'll come back, and that's how actually you go back and I moved something around and can't find it, can it? Let's go to Chrome and see what it's yelling about. Okay. Oh, no, it's not yelling about anything. Okay, here's the console. Here we go. Oh, okay. Let's go back to my code. Let's go over what it's yelling about. So I can't find. So when I create a new rectangle here, it doesn't know what a rectangle is because the class definitions are down here. So let's take these, let's drop these up at the top. And that will solve that problem. And we go back now, you can see here is, again, the box now is drawing. So, again, let me jump into, get this in Chrome, there we go. Okay, so the mouse input, you are going to see this going to be an issue reading the keyboard in Phoenix code. So just this is where jump from it's live to this version of the live. And it will again, you're effectively running it actively. So let's go back to and take out these D's because they're not part of my. All right, let's go back to, let's go over what's going on. Again, here is I'm actually drawing the box. Again, now I'm drawing the line. And then I'm drawing an image. So with the image, let's go over it. Basically, there is a type image. And I'm basically saying, hey, create this image and I'm setting the SRC to basically to that monkey face. When I go draw it, I'm basically telling it to draw it at 300 by 300, a size of 400 by 400. 40 by 40. I could easily say this is 64 by 64. We can go back to here. You can see that it's now jumped up in size. So you can see it's now changing in size based on how, based on the value here. There are more ways to draw the image. You can draw it clipped. You can clip an image. So you could clip an image. Go say, hey, draw this portion of the image here at this size. So there's a lot more to the draw image function than I'm showing here. I'm just showing the basic version of it and what you would normally use. Starting off, what you'd use. Let's just jump in the draw mouse line. One of the things I've got right now, let's go over some of the event handlers that I've got. I have the first one I'm going to show is basically, so I'm adding it to the canvas. I could have added this. I probably could have added this to the document, but I'm going to add event lists. Actually, I only wanted this. So I only wanted when my mouse was over the canvas, so this area right here, to deal with the mouse. If like right here, I don't care where my mouse is, and I don't want to keep tracking the mouse. And I don't want to track values beyond the canvas as well. As the other issue. That's why you see this set to the canvas. I could easily go document. And you can see that it is tracking beyond that as well. So let's go to give you an idea of what's going on. I'm going to take out the debug wheel moment and I'll bring back in this. So I'm going to put in the mouse location to it. So you can see right here that I've got this beyond. It's got values in terms of the document. So it's not particularly right per se. So that's why I went with, I'll bring those back, why I've got this as an event listener on the canvas. So basically there is an event called mouse move, and I'm setting it to the mouse move handler. And you'll see that a lot of these functions there's an actual value here for false. We can look up what that is in a moment. But basically, again, let me restructure this slightly. So basically, when I'm dealing with the mouse is over the canvas and it's moving around, I'm going to get an update. That's where I'm getting an update. It's an event that happens that I'm registering to. I have a mouse down. I was going to do a mouse up, but I didn't bother to. I'll show why in one moment. So here's the mouse down, and it's going to do the mouse down handler. And then I have a wheel, basically the wheel handler. And then I've got a key down, key up for handler as well, for the keyboard as well. Let's go through those. So here is the mouse move handler. And basically in this case, the event is being passed, and offset.x, offset.y are the values that I'm looking for. There are multiple values that you can look at. There's a couple other x, y values that you can go for. And I've given you the mouse event where it will list those off. Ultimately, offset x, offset y, again, in conjunction with us working with the canvas, these are the values you really want. So I've constrained my mouse to be something that is to the canvas. Now, ultimately, later on, you will assign the canvas size to be your whole window, effectively. And there is an event for when the window resizes. There is an event that you can attach a function to for that as well. And this is starting to get down deeper into the weeds with HTML. But ultimately, like if your window size was resized, you could account for the new window size accordingly. All that I'm doing right now is I'm just basically taking the event X and assigning it to this point called mouse location.x.y. And I'm showing you this because basically when I do my draw mouse line, first thing is I get the center of the box, which basically is the box location plus half of the width of the Y location plus half of the height. And that's center X, center Y, multiplication X, multiplication Y, black line, 3 units. And there you go. I've got my values for my information. A lot of this is going to be new, and some of it is this. It's going through the gymnastics. There's some gymnastics, mathematical gymnastics is going on here, and some of this is new. So it's going to may take a little bit to sink in. That's okay. This is for some cases. This is first time you've had to think at a very fundamental level what you're doing and why you're doing it. Wheel handler, basically, I'm just basically getting the delta dot y off of it. So I went and thought it was the delta x dot first. No, it's the y. I think that's because it's on the horizontal. I'm sorry, it's on a vertical axis and not a, when you look at your mouse, we tend that the mouse wheel scrolling is with the y axis of the mouse as opposed to the x. And that's why I think that the value, yeah. And it's one of those, hey, how would you know if you didn't, you'd have to try it one way before. And don't get me wrong, there are mice that have multiple scroll wheels, that have scroll wheels in multiple dimensions. They're weird mice, they do exist, they're crazy. And so there is actually a delta Z as well as a delta X value on this event as well, just to know. Again, the one we want is the delta Y, and I don't need to put this in the debug text. But basically, I am setting a value here, var value. For my purposes right now, I'm only assigning it to this value here. I should actually call this I really should just do, again, I should be adding this in up here. I'll just assign this to 0. So that I've got this up again. I should be creating the value here, and then be using this in the global. Assign this in the global space, and assign it down here based on the event. You see. Audio. Pretty straightforward. You create a new type of class of audio. You can actually give it the name of the audio clip that you want in there. So again, right here is, let's make a new one. We'll do const pew new audio. Put an empty string for right now. And literally, I'm just going to go right here, right click on Q, copy path. And I'll paste that right in there. And now I have a new variable that holds that reference to that audio clip. And I can then go in, I'll just change this. And it'll just be pew.play. So let's go and, so that's the one you've been hearing. And yes, you have heard these sound effects before. Combat. Yeah, combat. I created them so that they could be used on a regular basis. Why build something new? Then I'm just trying to show you what's going on in terms of in terms of audio. I'm not looking to do any. I'm not trying to what the audio is doesn't really matter. Plus I created these. Plus I created these WAV files, so giving them to you over and over is not a big deal in terms of copyright. So that's the other reason. I can close you. All right, let's look at so right now I've got, let me see, where is it? Okay, I've got a keyboard event here to the spacebar. So basically the event, there is a event.key. In this case, capital A, lower a, left arrow, right arrow are values of that key. Let me go to, let's look at the keyboard event. And this is going to help, this will really help you understand what's going on. This is about the key property. If you go down here, you scroll all the way down, there's this little result here right now. You can type in here, typed in a G. Here's a backspace. So there's an L. We'll do the 6. You can see that shift was pressed. The upper caret was pressed. So basically you're dealing with keys on the keyboard with this the way we're doing here. You're going to go through number 6 caret as well. Oh, same thing goes. Let me reset this. So 1 and shift. So 1 and exclamation mark are the same key. You can see was pressed, about, input, released. You can look at the coding here. They create a, where is it? Here we go. So again, here they're going through and they're creating, again, with that Lambda function. Here's the E event. What is going on down here? Now let's go back to my code and let's look at the keyboard. And I go to Mozilla, I'm sorry, the Chrome. And I'm going to hold down the space bar. And that is repeating because that is the natural state of the keyboard. If you hold down the space bar, it's going to, after a few seconds, it's going to keep repeating, sending a symbol that a keyboard space has been pressed. And that's normal. Now, the issue that we have is that when we're doing movement like this with the box, we don't want that. That's actually detrimental to what we're doing. I mean, you could set up that way, but that's not responsive as we would expect. It's not, I'm holding down the key and it should, when I stop, it should stop. So if we look at the rest of the keys in there, you can see that I am setting a Boolean to be true when it's pressed down, and then on the event handle up, I am setting that Boolean to be false. So when I release it, so I've got an internal Boolean, so I'm not dealing with the re-triggering of that event over and over again. When I press down, I have a Boolean that's being set to true, and then update on the update switch because that input is not. These are events being shut off as they are happening. Whereas my update is going to happen every 30 frames a second. What was that?
Just like in Unity.
Yeah, but this is how we're pulling, again, this is how we are pulling our input internally. That I am setting, I've got functions that call off when those events happen, and I'm setting values internally to my application effectively. So right now those values are input up, input right, input left, up, down, left, the input left, input right, excuse me. Let's start again. Input left, input right, input up, input down. These are the arrow keys, and right now only the A key for left is also assigned. And I didn't do that for all of them just because, again, I was working as fast as I can. You can map, that's something you can map. And essentially this is event key equal to this value, or this key equal to that value, or event key equal to A, or lowercase a. So that's how we're dealing. The other, let me see again. The other thing is an event button is mapped to an integer. Let me bring up the mouse event, the button property. And it literally is basically 0, main button, left mouse button, auxiliary button, or the mouse wheel. So when you press the mouse button, can be pressed as a button. That's going to be 1, and then 2 secondary button, right button, and then 4th and 5th button, typically the browser back and forward button. If you want to get wacky, I know there are mice that have those buttons on them as well. So and more. So just be mindful of that. Buttons may be configured differently from the standard left or right. So just be mouse configured left-handed use may have buttons actions reversed. So be mindful. Be mindful of that. That you know these could be reversed on you due to setup. I'm going through. I've shown you how to play sound, how to get the mouse wheel. The mouse wheel, basically, when you see that, that is going to be either like 100 or 200 or negative 100 or negative 200 on each frame. So we're going to draw a mouse line. I think I've gone all over the big pieces. We've played sound. Okay, so I've given you a lot of things here, and again, for your grid application, all right, you are probably using this code. You're definitely grabbing these 2 lines of code. You may want to change if you want to change the canvas name. That's most likely. I probably would. I didn't get a chance to go back and name that not my. I typically don't like variables being called my. I find that a poor programming practice. Yeah, you wouldn't typically call a variable my in an application.
So you just call it canvas?
Not canvas, but it would be draw. I would actually might call it draw area. Or the draw area canvas. So yeah, because I wouldn't use the word canvas because there's the element canvas, also there's the variable canvas here. So just to be on the Again, a little bit of paranoia is good for the programmer's soul. A lot of it if you're doing multi-network programming. Setting an interval, this interval set interval function, calling to like an update function, any of the 33. The other one, if you wanted 60 frames a second, then that would be 16. Is the other value if you wanted that's common here. Would be 30 milliseconds is about 30 frames a second. 16 milliseconds is about 60 frames a second. So we're okay as long as we're not overloading. What the browser's doing, but that where you are right now, you're not building crazy applications at the moment where that level of intensity is going to ever come into play. But if you were to build a much bigger, much more robust application, you'd be doing more than just set an interval. There'd be more code here. And there's and it's an engineering question. It's a solved problem. It's an engineering question. But we're not at a level of engineering of that level of engineering that we don't. This is the difference between why are we writing in C++ versus why we would write this just in Blueprint in Unreal type question. You can do what we're doing here is just Blueprint level. Can we go more robust and go with C++? Yes. Do we need to? Not always. And again, for what we're doing right now for the applications we're building, this is going to work fine. Got that box points, mouse wheel. Yeah, I think I've gone through pretty much everything that we need to do. I would build, and I would actually start by building a class. grid 2D and use the constructor. And this is going to be, I'm blanking all the values, but let's just say grid. So grid size. And then we open up the constructor. So this is again a did.grid size. So again, we're going to the class itself, adding this property, and then assigning it to what we're passing it. And I would, again, use this format because that's what everyone else is using. So this is very much a good standard format. If this is the value that you want to call, then this is what you want to, how you want to assign it. How to establish, declare it, and assign it in the class itself. I would probably do function, I want lowercase f. Function, update. And I probably would, might in this case actually do a set interval update 33. Methods. Oh, I gotta go back and look at the correct way to add this to the. I'm gonna have to go back through the class and look at the correct way to add this. Oh, there might be two updates. We'll worry about this later on. I will probably send a snippet of code where basically, hey, this class, and you don't have to have the class update itself. We could, but we don't have to. I mean, just doing this way in the global space is fine as well. So, but we can create a var grid is equal to new grid 2D, and we'll say grid size is 20. All right, what do we mean by grid size in this in the grid application? Basically, how many pixels does it take you to go from point 1 to point 2, or from point 0 to point 1? And we're saying there's 20 pixels in terms of how big the grid is. That's what grid size means. We are now. There's two things I want you to think about. There is the grid space itself. Like if you're like on 0.11 on the grid, then you are literally at, let's say our center point is at 50-50. Our origin is at 50-50. If you're 1-1 on the grid, you're actually 70 units over, so that's 20 units plus, so that's 1 unit, 70. And then 1 unit up. That's actually going to subtract as we look back at broken stuff. Let me take this out for the moment. Let's just take a look at the draw box. Where is that? Here it is. And did I take it out of the wheel? I did. Okay, there we go. So you can see that going upwards is a negative value. And so here is, again, I'm at the center of my box, which is at, I've got it, it's about 164, 150. So the corner is right here. So here's about where 150 is. Center is going to be 160 by 160 because that's a 20 by 20 box. So let's say the box origin 160 by 160 is, if I've got a grid size of 20, 1-1 means 1 unit this way. So I'll just say we'll say grid unit 40 at this point. And then 120. I'm not gonna get precise. But basically, going up is a negative value in the canvas. Again, this is because the origin of the canvas is up over here, and going across is normal, but going down is flipped from the Cartesian way. So just note that clockwise is going to start going this way, not the other way, counterclockwise. So these are things to be aware about. If I've got 1 minus 1, it means I'm down over here. Negative 1 is over here, and negative 1 and 1 is up here. So just keep that in mind in terms of when things are moving around. Up is a negative value, down is a positive value on the y-axis, and then left is negative, right is a positive value. Let's go back over the document one more time. Where is it? There we go. So again, right here, I've got 3 types of lines that we're going to talk about. A normal line, an axis line, a division line. So we're looking at the x-axis. So we're looking just going down the x-axis at x, y is equal to 0. This I right here is my axis line. And that's y is equal to 0. And that I want you to draw, I'm having you draw with a strong white line. And a thicker white line. So that would be like a line with a 3, maybe. I'm going to say that there are our grid is of 20 units. So the next line over is 20, 40, 60, 80, and then I have what's called a division line, and that division count is set to 5. So what I'm saying is every 5th line is going to be drawn differently. And if we go back to the image, let's go back to that image right moment. You can see right here, and this is, so I've got, here is the axis, and you can see line, 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 and then here's that yellow line, that's that division line. One thing that I'm doing is I'm drawing a square right here basically to indicate the origin, and that's basically I'm saying I'm drawing 4 lines from here, going around. So if my grid size is 20, I'm saying that half of that or 0.4 of that. So in this case, if it's 0.4, then it's a value like I'm going 8 units out. So this is origin, 8 units up, 8 units down, 8 units this way, 8 units that way, and that's given my 4 points to which to draw the lines. They look curved for some reason. I don't know why. They're not supposed to be. It might be this is an older image. And there could be a compression issue that's going that makes it look it looks curved, but it's not curved.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that let's go to 400. There we go. Yeah, it's an older image. That's all I can say. It's just an older image, and I've got some compression issues. But in your application, it'll be nice and crisp on your application. My recommendation is that you can draw. So let's just take the first 4 lines. So you've got your axis lines. What you can then do is it's basically going to for loop. It is like I'm going to keep going until certain value has gotten outside of range of the window. Now, keep in mind that you've got to check for both sides. So it's not if this is my window and my center, I'm drawing the center here, I got to go out all the way until I get out this side. So that's something to be mindful, that your value needs to get beyond a certain point. Yeah, it's not, well, the thing is that if I'd be drawing my vertical and horizontal lines in groups. So I draw my axes, and then these two lines and these two lines I then draw next. And I can draw them as a group. And then I can draw these two lines and these two lines. And so I'm basically building a box, another bigger box, in terms of the lines. They're going beyond the box, but your drawing is a very large. One of the things that you'll want to do is go from across the scope of the canvas. So you're going to go, ultimately you are going to figure out, okay, that my line should be here, and then it should go from canvas here to canvas over there. Now, right now we are building our lines based on, there's no rotation on the grid. I don't know if we can do the rotation. Well, that's a question for another class. I will be honest with you that I'm taking a lab from the math and physics course and throwing it at you here because you can. Because with what you've learned, you can draw a grid and do that. Next week, you're going to start plotting things on the grid. And we'll talk about translation. And that's basically building things with the drawing tools here with HTML5. What the style of things and where were we going? I mean, that's, if it should be obvious, it's geometry wars.
Like drawing with decimals.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's all lines. I mean, if we look at, if you look at it closely, I mean, they're all lines. These are all lines.
See the grid.
Yeah, and they're doing grid warping. They're doing some wacky stuff with this grid back here because they can. The grid is actually all the points are they're all like springs effectively. They're being pulled around. You can see the grid warping as things happen. You can see the grid is warping. Space-time is warping type stuff. And that's just basically warping. Essentially, it's basically the grid is basically one big cloth. The best way to describe it is it's a cloth simulation, effectively, behind the scenes. But that's another question. That type of warping we're not even going to get into in this course. All right. Just basic drawing, just having you draw stuff is the important piece right here. All right. Are there any questions about what I've gone over? If there is, again, come grab me. Again, be careful with your code. It's very easy to break things. Like, for example, again, I moved things around. Again, these, like I moved, here we go. I moved these two lines of code up, and I put those two lines before I had these, and things broke. So there is a order of operations, like, again, define your classes up here. Again, I would then have my class, grid 2D. I'm just not gonna bother writing and tying. But again, if I wanted to use the rectangular point class in the grid 2D, then I need to have these defined before the grid 2D class. And I've also messed this up. I should have a capital R here. So correct that in your own code before that's something that I can't, it'll take a while for me to correct. and I don't want to break, again, I'll have to go back through and correct every other instance where I'm using this, so I'll do that another time. Any other questions for me? Do you feel confident that you'll be able to do this assignment?
So,
Okay. I got someone typing. Yes, from Discord. Antonio thinks he can. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the recording right here. I'll upload it.